Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Talk Thursday. The latest Pulse Asia survey showed the Philippine Senate's approval and trust ratings went down in the aftermath of corruption scandals, disputed spending programs. The Senate's approval score dropped from 41% in March to 33% in June. Its overall disapproval rating also went up from 14% in March to 23% in June. On July 28, Senate President Frank Drilon vowed to, in his words, revive people's faith in the Senate. How will the legislative body do this? Joining us today is Senator Drilon to talk about what the Senate will do, as well as how the proposed 2015 national budget, what it will look like. Also, this is a man who has been in government from the beginning of democracy, of people power. Senator Drilon, thank you for coming to join us.
My pleasure, Maria. Thank you for inviting me this afternoon.
It is from 1986 to today, we have come a long way, or maybe not. How would you assess Philippine democracy today?
Well, Maria, for all its warts, I think we have a working democracy. We have a very free press, which is very critical as an institution of democracy. We can change leaders peacefully, except for some upheavals in the year 2000, but generally, we hold elections to change leaders, and that's very critical. You don't hear any more of soldiers trying to, quote, protect the people through coup d'etats, and therefore we have our institutions of democracy. But I would say, Maria, that it is a work in progress. We have to continue strengthening our institutions of democracy. And this is where I would say that as I said in the opening of the second regular session, we realized that the events in the past year, particularly the PDAF and DAP scandals, and particularly the PDAF scandal, which affected and which resulted in the detention of three of our colleagues, has really affected the perception of the people in our Senate. And you know what I am just being careful about is I must be able, as the leader of the Senate, to restore this confidence, because no matter what, the Senate is a vital institution of democracy. If this slide in perception would not be arrested, then you know, the very belief of our people in our democratic system of government can be affected. That is why I said we must restore the faith of our people in our Senate, because not only must we make ourselves relevant, but we must show to our people that indeed we need the Senate, and a total collapse of the Senate would not be good for us.
So how do you plan to do that?
Well, as I told my colleagues, first, we must show to our people that we support principles of accountability and transparency. We have supported the unearthing and investigation of all this corruption in government, support transparency. I have already stated that I will respect the Sandigan Bayan's decision on the preventive suspension of my colleagues. This is part of the process. That's one. Second, we intend to really work on legislation which could really have an impact on our political, economic, and social life, so that you know it's very difficult. In many instances, the effect of legislation is long range. For example, Maria, in 2012, I worked hard on the sin tax law.
Yes.
That reform measure was languishing in the halls of Congress for 16 years.
Yes.
And because of the support of the President, we were able to push it. I won the vote by one vote, or a vote of 11 to 10.
Right.
So, but that was a reform law. That is the kind of law that we need, as reform that we need to pass. But people will not appreciate that. People does not appreciate the fact that because of that law, we generated 41 billion pesos more on cigarette taxes alone, which we now use for PhilHealth, enrollment of the poor sector of our society. We use it to the repair of our hospitals. So you can imagine the kind of benefit that such a reform law costs our people. But that is not appreciated. It has been forgotten.
Can I ask you about that? So it's been a year since it's been
Yes.
implemented. How would you gauge the implementation? How is it performed?
Well, insofar as the financials are concerned, yes, it has performed very well. The universal health care program of the government is fully funded to the tune of about 41 billion. Now, on the health side, I must say that the effects are not that significant. The purpose of the sin tax law is try to reduce the smoking prevalence in our country, because the poor would depend on our public health system for cure, for medicine, and for healthcare caused by smoking. But the effect so far is that the statistics, the data would show, and the surveys would show that for our socio-economic class E, which is the very poor, the increase in the prices of the cigarette has actually lowered the smoking prevalence. But that would have to continue until we have a universal, we have only, excuse me, a unitary tax system for cigarettes.
Which is also coming up. I'll come back to that, but let me ask you. So the corruption scandal, the Priority Development Assistance Fund, and then let's call it the cousin, the disbursement,
yes.
DAP. This has shaken people's faith.
Yes.
Because the very people that they've elected and they trusted to guard the public funds are the ones who are seemingly getting kickbacks out of
Yes.
it. Where is it? The PDAF, the perception has been that while the government has gone after it, it needed a push from the people, and that it was partisan politics played a role. Is that a correct perception?
No, that is not. The partisan politics did not get into the picture because, well, there's an often repeated allegation of why only us.
Yes, actually, they keep saying this, and of course, the three senators who are jailed now for plunder are the members of the opposition.
Yeah, except that the evidence against them is also sufficient to warrant the finding of a probable cause. So the fact that they are in the opposition, I think, is incidental. The fact is there is evidence against them, and it's a continuing investigation. And we, as a Senate, we support it. We support moves towards transparency.
How will it affect the Senate to have three strong opposition voices essentially sidelined? Does it have any impact on the way the Senate will work?
Well, firstly, the opposition, we still have the post of minority leader is taken over by Senator Soto. It has not affected our work in the Senate. Of course, on Monday, I understand J.V. Ejercito will deliver an anti-SONA speech. So, work in the Senate continues, notwithstanding the detention of our three colleagues.
Let me go back to the development, the DAP, DAP.
Yeah.
The executive, this again seems to be dangerous in the sense that it seems to be a clash of government. The executive now wants to redefine, wants Congress to actually be very clear, redefine savings after the DAP experience. Isn't this bringing to a head a clash with the Supreme Court?
No. The common misconception is that we cannot touch anymore what the Supreme Court said. That's the common misconception. That's totally baseless. Because firstly, the executive has filed a motion for reconsideration. Right. So there is no clash. Actually, they were availing of the process. More importantly, the entire decision was based on the definition of savings.
Yes.
What constitutes savings? When can you use savings? When can there be savings? This is not a constitutional issue. Savings is defined by, number one, the revised administrative code, number two, the General Appropriations Act. There is nothing wrong with our redefining savings because that is the law. We can, in our system of government, we set the policy through legislation. The Supreme Court interprets that policy by your judicial power of judicial review.
Right.
Now, if if our intention was really the savings can be used at any time for various reasons, then the Supreme Court said no, you have to wait until December. Then we have the right to redefine what savings is so that we can have the correct intention enunciated. And there is nothing wrong. There is nothing
I understand.
wrong.
I understand.
But just to drive home one point.
Yeah.
The law on libel is a criminal offense.
Yes.
Okay? A reporter gets convicted of libel. The Supreme Court affirms the conviction. The day after the Supreme Court affirms the conviction, we pass a law decriminalizing libel that erases all the effects of the decision of the Supreme Court. Because that's how our system works. We pass the law, we define the policy, the Supreme Court interprets the policy as they read it through the law.
Understood.
And it is for us to tell the Supreme Court this is how it should be defined. There is nothing unconstitutional about that.
Understood. It's a checks and balances.
That's correct.
Of the
it's
system.
part of the check and balance system.
How did you react when the president spoke on nationwide television? Because it is his right, his prerogative to file an MR with the Supreme Court decision. But there was something almost not just defiant, but it seemed to be an indirect threat to the Supreme Court. How did you react?
Well, firstly, I was not here.
Okay.
But just on the point, you see the basic objection of the president was on that what we call obiter, an opinion expressed in the decision, which has nothing to do with the ruling, which said that we assume that you are in bad faith, prove good faith. So they said that those who proposed the acceleration program, those who proposed projects, those who implemented, are liable unless you prove good faith. That is totally wrong.
Yes.
All the decisions of the Supreme Court, all our jurisprudence, all our law says there is regularity in the performance of functions as an assumption.
Yes.
Good faith is presumed. So that what the Supreme Court did was to reverse that and say no, you are presumed to be in bad faith, and therefore you can be charged administratively or criminally unless you prove good faith. That is totally wrong, and that is where the president thought that the Supreme Court went a little bit overboard. And that has nothing to do with the decision. I mean, that opinion has nothing to do with the decision. We call it among lawyers the obiter dictum. It's an opinion which has nothing to do with the decision of the case, and yet the Supreme Court placed it there. So that is the center of the controversy. Because the DAP was discontinued as a program.
With the Supreme Court decision, it was already before.
As of December of 2013, it was discontinued.
So how would you describe what is going on now? It seems definitely there's stresses on the checks and balances. The Supreme Court ruled, the president says that I disagree, the judicial group, the legislators now are actually, this week, the House called the Supreme Court justices on their own JDF.
Well, I don't want to comment on the second portion, but
it seems like this checking powers, right? Balance of power here.
I'm not worried about that. I think our democracy is strong enough to withstand those kind of tensions, and that's part of a debate. It's better that we debate with the Supreme Court rather than resort to other things.
I think what was interesting though is the almost immediate reaction of the public to the president's speech, and that is more about how our powerful handle power.
Yes.
Yes. Now, speaking as the head of the Liberal Party, let me ask you. When the president did this, there was almost a reaction, an overwhelming reaction, both on social media, and you saw it in the surveys, really not liking what he did. Why is that?
Well, I think it's the coming as it does. I mean, this episode coming as it does after the PDAF controversy, where the legislators were perceived to be instead of as thieves, so that was the reaction, because the impression was that the DAP and the PDAF were the same.
Yes.
When it is not.
It's not. How would you define the difference between these in broad terms?
In broad terms, the disbursement acceleration program is a program which enables the executive to augment items in the budget from savings in other items. This is allowed under Article 6, Section 25, Paragraph 5 of the Constitution, which allows the President, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House,
Right.
the Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice, and the others to realign items in their budget.
Right.
Now, it was from savings in their own department.
Right.
So the first issue was, when will there be savings to allow you constitutionally to move the item? As differentiated from PDAF, the PDAF is really an item in the budget which the Supreme Court said was utilized unconstitutionally because after the budget is approved, the legislators participate in the execution of the budget by pointing to projects.
Right.
That is not so in the case of the DAP. The projects are already there, except that it has to be augmented because the insufficiency of the amount involved.
Agree. And it seems that the question, at least you said the crux of the matter on DAP, is that the definition of savings defines whether or not the executive encroached on the powers of the lawmakers to approve the budget.
That's correct. Well, that's the issue there was whether or not the Congress or the President has improperly utilized and disregarded the appropriations in the General Appropriations Act, which is enactment of Congress as part of the power over the purse.
So on this part, for Secretary Abad, was it mismanagement on his part to reallocate some of the DAP to the senators, right?
No, first, he did not reallocate the DAP to the senators. What happened was that there was a request for, say, in my case, I'll use my example.
Yes.
I requested that 1,000 low-cost housing be built in my city in order to transfer the informal settlers along the river because of the floods. Now, I requested for 100 million. The funds of the National Housing Authority was not sufficient. So the President, recognizing the validity of my request, funded the housing program of the National Housing Authority to the extent of 100 billion. Now, I did not get the 100 billion. Yes, I nominated the project.
Right.
It was funded, and it was executed by the National Housing Authority.
I see. But again, the perception is that the senators, post-corona, is it just the timing of it that there was a reward? Certainly, this is what J.B. Ejercito says, right?
That's the perception, and you know, in our situation, perception is sometimes becomes the reality, and that is why it is a challenge how to explain this to the public. And I'm glad I am here in order to again explain what the real score is.
So where do you think this will all lead?
Sorry?
And where will all of this lead? I'll pull it back out again, a little bit broader, away from the details.
I am sure that over time, firstly, over time, I think the people will understand what the real score is, what are the legal issues concerned. This is really that the transfer of funds from one item to the other is valid. But I am not saying that the misuse of the funds is valid. That's a completely different picture. It is just a question of whether the President can utilize the savings to augment other items in the budget. That one is defensible legally. But I am not saying that if you misused the funds, that there is an exemption there. No, they should be punished.
The perception with the President's nationwide speech, it seemed to have an impact on what he did with Corona. Right? The last time he challenged the judiciary, everyone rallied behind him because it seemed like a high and mighty cause to clean up corruption. And somehow this time around, his defense of the DAP was politically costly for him. So as the Senate is trying to regain the trust of the people, the President has lost also. It's been politically costly. How do you think, yes, you said over time it may pan out, but is it in time for the 2016 elections? I guess is it in time? Is there time enough to actually for the President to recover the kind of of
Oh, certainly, yes. We have still 2 years to the election, Maria. 1 week is too long in politics.
certainly very noisy politics here.
1 week can change the fortunes of a candidate. Recent political history. In 2009, August 1, 2009, President Cory passed away.
Yes.
At that point, President Noy was nowhere in the scene.
Yes.
Okay, so suddenly, with the death of the mother, he became a leading candidate from nowhere. So I'm not saying that somebody should die again.
Yeah, but
What I'm just saying is, you'll never know what will happen in the next 2 years. And as I said, 1 week is too long in politics for political fortunes to change.
so let me ask you about what's been going on after the President's State of the Union address. All of a
State of
sudden,
the- State of the Nation.
State of the Nation address. All of a sudden, there's talk that perhaps the President LP may back Vice President Binay. Is Mar still the standard? Mar Rojas is Secretary Rojas still the standard bearer of the LP? And where is all of this coming
Yes,
from?
If Mar Rojas makes public his decision to seek the presidency, the LP will support him. Having said that, the president is our chairman, and he is the president of our country. He is the leader of our country. Certainly, his views as to who should continue his programs and who has supported him on his reform policy for the past 2 years or 3 years will count a lot in who the next candidate will be for the administration and for the party.
How much significance do you give to the ratings? Because when we look at SWS and Pulse Asia, Secretary Rojas hasn't performed well.
Yes, as I said 2 years ago,
Okay.
there's still a lot of
Fair.
things to happen. Yes, right now he's lagging behind, but let's see what happens in the next few months.
Who are other people that you are looking at?
At this point, we are looking only at Mar.
Grace Poe has been mentioned. Is she one?
Yes,
of the,
but she is not a member of our party.
correct.
Okay?
Yes,
so
yes.
we have not discussed matters other than our own party mates.
Senator Drilon, there's so many questions coming in. Let me throw them to you from social
Yes.
media. I have asked you too many.
Yes.
What's next after the end of Senator Drilon's term in the Senate? Higher office, private life. What's next for you?
No, I am still eligible for one
One more.
term.
Yes.
So if the people would continue to support me, I will seek re-election at this point.
That was from at Fritz Mingao. From at J. Lawrence, any plans for the Senate and the House of Representatives to make rules to ensure the fast passage of the supplemental budget laws?
Well, yes, we once it is the supplemental budget must come from the House. We have a regular monthly meeting with the House, and that is where we coordinate everything, so that we have the legislative agenda in front of us on a monthly basis. We go through it, and issues like the Bangsamoro law, we
Yes.
discuss it there.
Yes.
We have
FOI.
The FOI, we have passed it in the
You
Senate.
have
Yeah,
already,
so it's
yes,
in the House.
correct.
The Bangsamoro law, we have to work hard on it the moment
Yes.
we get it. We are working on a fair competition bill, an antitrust measure. It has been sponsored in the Senate. We're working on it on the House.
Okay.
And bill which would raise the exemption for or raise the tax exemption limit on the 13th month pay, which is right now 30,000. So, and a few other items, the Scholar ng Bayan Act, which are of national significance, and we are working on that. So this is one of the measures that we have, strategies that we have devised in order indeed to regain the confidence of our people, not only in the Senate but in Congress in general, because we suffer from perception that indeed we're nothing but a house of thieves. And be candid about it.
Right, right.
But these are the challenges to us, to show that indeed we do not deserve that, and we will work hard in order to show that indeed we are a vital cog in our democratic system.
That's fantastic to hear. You also took a hit during the PEDAF scandal.
Yes.
Mark Stroganoff von Gothe asks, Senator Drilon, I just want to ask your reaction about netizens' opinions on your involvement on the PDAF scam.
I was not involved in the PDAF scam, not at all, and I can account for every peso of the pork barrel that was allocated to me.
It seems
I have built 1,600 classrooms in this country.
fantastic. So it seems, again, you said 2 years, a year and a half for this administration. How do you think this uncertainty, again, part of the reason I think people are looking for who the candidates are going to be is looking for continuity. The president has said he's looking for continuity, but will economic growth continue given the kind of political fever that we will go through in the next year and a half?
Maria, in my view, businessmen do not really look at all of this political noise. As long as they see stability, they see consistency in the policy, they see that certain restrictive laws are being removed in order to allow a better investment environment. They don't, and they see that the government is stable and can withstand all of the shocks. They will continue to invest where their money, and as I said, all this political noise will not really affect their investment decisions. What is important is, do we have enough infrastructure?
Yes.
Do we have stability in our policy? Do we have stability in our government? All of these are major inputs to a decision to come to the country.
So let me ask you back to the question we started with. You said they see us as a den of thieves, right? So what exactly then, both in the Liberal Party and as the head of the Senate, what do you exactly plan to do now?
Well, firstly, we support the process of investigating those who are involved.
Yep.
And we will comply with the decisions of the Supreme Court, of the courts, insofar as the decisions on the PDAF are concerned. We will not stand in the way. As I said, I will personally, and the Senate will implement, if it becomes executory, the preventive suspension on our 3 colleagues. So this is a process that we know that we have to go through.
You're saying just go through the process,
Yes.
follow the rule of law.
Yes, follow the rule of law, show that we are one with the people in seeking the truth. You know, there's no shortcuts here.
In political terms, for politics, for 2016, the president's endorsement was seen to really confirm some kind of major push for any candidate running for president. Do you still believe that's the case?
Yes, I still believe, especially for this president. Maybe the endorsement of the past president didn't matter, and it should not have mattered anyway.
Yes.
And it did not matter. But yes, the endorsement of the president, President Aquino, will matter here. 4 years into his presidency, a majority of the people still approve.
Yes, he's got high approval ratings from our.
After 4 years and going through all of this, he has more than a good majority of people approving him. So his endorsement will be of value.
Vice President Binay has been laying the groundwork now for a much longer period of time than the Liberal Party. Do you think that's can the Liberal Party beat this? He's so prepared.
1 week is too long in politics. Fortunes can change.
Let me ask you your last thoughts on this now. So we're going through a very turbulent period where the institutions of government really have taken a hit. How would you assess moving forward, regaining people's trust, and then what's next for this democracy?
Well, firstly, yes, it is a period of where there's a lot of tension, but I don't think you can call it turbulent. Yes, there was a lot of political debate, there's a lot of political noise, that I see it as part of our democracy. Our institutions are strong enough to be able to withstand this, including the Supreme Court, including media.
Yes.
So these are all part of our building the foundations of a stronger democracy. It takes a little longer, but we'll get there. So I'm not concerned about all of this. Yes, the reforms are being undertaken as long as we support the reform program of society, then we should be able to survive all of this and come out stronger.
Well, this just came out yesterday, charter change. The presidential spokesman was quoted as saying that the president will follow his bosses. Is there a chance for charter change? Will the president look to extend his term?
Well, there is no talk of a charter change in the Senate. I have not, the president has not conveyed to me anything about charter change, except that he's even averse to it, you know. But insofar as the political provisions of the Constitution are concerned, I don't think anyone will touch it at this point. Now, there is a move in the House to incorporate a very, very simple provision in the economic provisions, which will give the government some flexibility insofar as changing policies are concerned. So that one I personally would endorse. If it passes the House, then I told Speaker Belmonte, I'll take it up in the Senate.
Your last thoughts, Senator Drilon?
Well, you know, we are going through a process. And so long as we follow the institutions of democracy, or particularly the media, I am not worried about the effects of all of this. Yes, the institutions should be separate from the persons manning these institutions. We should make, it's difficult, it's a challenge, but we should make a distinction between the Senate and the senators, individual senators involved. But as I said, it is a challenge, and we will continue to work on that in order to restore our people's faith in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, so that they can, their faith in democracy as a whole will not waver.
Senator Drilon, just, I know I said last question, but you know, in Indonesia, the very first member, the first president-elect who was not a member of the country's ruling political elite. It's the first time in Southeast Asia it's happened. A man who used to be a squatter in Solo is now president of Indonesia, showing kind of a handover of power. Do you see anything like that happening in the Philippines anytime soon? A Jokowi figure?
I do not see anybody in the surface right now who would be another
Jokowi, right? Yeah,
in the Philippine scene, but I don't discount that.
Okay.
But you know, certain things must be done, you know, in our society.
What things? What things can strengthen it better?
Strengthen our transparency policies, you know, so that we can address the issue of accountability.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Senator Drilon. We have been speaking to Senate President Frank Drilon about the Senate, the state of Philippine democracy, how our institutions can restore public trust and add greater transparency, not just in the budget, which has been the focus of the last few weeks, but in the government, the institutions themselves. I'm Maria Ressa. Let's continue the conversation. We're on Twitter, on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. I'm so sorry that the